Just over 60 miles from London, we are in the heart of Kent in Ashford. With 9 out of 10 people in the UK now living in towns and cities, the need to protect and value green spaces in urban areas is crucial for so many reasons. They may be the only green environments that many of its population enjoy and experience. Ashford is fortunate as it has a real jewel, the Ashford Green Corridor, a slightly misleading name as it is made up of green spaces beside 3 river corridors, the Great Stour, East Stour and Aylesford Stream, which all meet close to the centre of town. The corridor's green spaces are varied and include formal parks, woodlands, lakes, wetlands and recreation areas. The river corridors are also incredibly important for wildlife, as they protect excellent habitat for a surprisingly wide variety of species that live in the Ashford Green Corridor and need to move through it from one side of town to the other and out into the countryside. The Kentish Stour Countryside Partnership has worked with Ashford Borough Council for many years to try and ensure that these habitats are enhanced and protected. I'm about to start my journey of the Ashford Green Corridor at Buxford Meadow, where some major work has been undertaken to create a fish pass, and I'm about to meet Barry from the Environment Agency. Can you tell me something about the fish pass and the river?
Yeah, the fish pass was put in 2017, 2018. After a long design period, we started looking at it around about 2012. And as far as we know, the fish are using it and are moving upstream to their breeding grounds.
What are the outcomes like? Is it working as planned?
It's a bit early to say yet. We need 1 or 2 more seasons yet to see whether the fish are breeding, but certainly all the conditions are right that they should be.
As you travel through the Green Corridor, it's easy to forget that you're only minutes away from the centre of a busy town and major motorways. Yet we can see how well nature is able to flourish. Diane from Kentish Stour Countryside Partnership has been working with Ashford Borough Council for years to improve the habitat in the Ashford Green Corridor. Tell me something about the habitats here in the Ashford Green Corridor.
There's a lot of different habitats, some small, some large, some little strips. The main one is the river corridor, so that's the water, obviously, the river and the aquatic vegetation and the animals that come in as a consequence. We have wetland areas that are separate, so that's ponds, lakes, ditches, reed beds, and we have separate woodlands as well, wet woodlands, and meadows, which are incredibly important.
Okay, great, because I was going to ask you what's actually important about the habitats and why are they special?
Well, I mean, they're all kind of special. The meadows I've mentioned particularly, I suppose, because of them disappearing at such a quick rate, and they support our insects, including bees, which are all the pollinators, butterflies and so forth. And then the river itself, special species, and the trees, dormice, other species that are going into extinction like water vole. So they're important habitats for the animals, but for us as well, because that's our habitat too, really, nature.
Every time I go through the Ashford Green Corridor, I seem to spot something different. And my favourite way of getting round is on my bike. It's traffic-free transport, healthy, I see different areas and different types of landscape features. Foot and cycle paths created through the Ashford Green Corridor connect communities in Ashford and beyond via public transport. As I was saying, I always spot something different, and here's Lauren with a group of school children. What have you been doing with the children today?
We've had a group from Ashford Oaks Primary School come down and do some river dipping, so that was further up the river, and then they've walked down here to Watercress Fields, and they have been doing activities based on life cycles. So at the moment they're designing their own life cycle based on the River Stour.
That's wonderful. And what do you hope they'll learn today?
I really hope they'll go home, tell their family and friends about everything they've learnt today. They'll pass on that information and be able to tell more people about the lovely River Stour.
It's so nice to see a generation of young children really engaging with and enjoying the nature that is right on their doorstep. Just as I can get around the Green Corridor on my bike, it is important that wildlife species are able to feed and move through the landscape too. They need habitats such as trees, shrubs, meadows, water and riverbank vegetation to provide food and breeding areas, but also as cover from predators and human disturbance. It is important that these wildlife habitats are found throughout the corridor to support specific native species, but also so animals can migrate and flourish throughout. Terry Jones is the Nature Conservation Officer from Ashford Borough Council. I'm speaking to him today and finding out more about the Borough Council's involvement in the conservation of and growth of green spaces in Ashford. Can you elaborate on the important role that local authorities play in setting an example of good environmental practice and about raising awareness of why biodiversity is important?
Well, I think in the first place, local authorities should set an example of good environmental stewardship by always taking account of the needs of wildlife when planning new developments and when managing and maintaining urban and rural landscapes. It has to be backed up by explaining to the public why certain things are being done. For example, why are some areas left in a natural state rather than being kept neat and tidy? Why are wildlife corridors so important for biodiversity? Local councils are also in a good position to raise awareness of more general threats to the environment and what can be done, for example, by encouraging residents to reduce waste and to recycle more, to create wildlife-friendly gardens and so on.
And what is the Green Corridor Action Plan and what's it setting out to do?
The current 2017 plan includes agreed extensions to the Green Corridor network, much of which is actually designated as local nature reserve, to raise the profile of riverside areas, protecting the land from being built upon, and by working with others, such as the Kentish Stour Countryside Partnership and private landowners, to undertake improvements and requiring nearby developments to make a positive contribution to the Green Corridor.
Another hidden gem just off the National Cycle Route 18 is South Park Meadow beside the Stour Centre. This new floodplain meadow is now hidden behind a new native hedge and raised bank. It now supports loads of flying insects and pollinators, bringing birds and other animals into the area. It's wonderful to see how well areas are doing because of the work that's being undertaken. However, we're taking a little detour down to South Willsborough Dykes, which is located close to the Ashford Designer Outlet, to speak with Debbie about the challenges facing the Ashford Green Corridor.
Let me tell you a little bit about South Willsborough Dykes. It's an area of about 200 acres and it's designated as lowland floodplain grazing. That means it's a landscape that's periodically inundated with water, creating areas of drier grassland and then damper grassland, which is good for pushing invertebrates to the surface for wading birds such as snipe to get to the fly larvae and things and beetles to feed on. Added to that, we have wonderful wildflower meadows along the edge, and we even have areas of woodland which are planted with over 4,000 trees for dormice as part of a translocation project. But all of this brings with it pressures and challenges. The site itself is noosed in on all sides. It has main roads, it has railway track, it has a shopping centre and also has a housing estate on one side. So all of that creates pressures such as noise pollution, light pollution, litter, and the impact of cats and dogs, impacting on ground nesting birds and hunting on the small mammals, amphibians, reptiles that might live here. But what we also need to do is see there's an opportunity. People do need to engage with wildlife, people need to connect with wildlife. That's why this corridor through here, planted with wildflower seeds, managed by the Kentish Stour volunteers, is a real asset to the town.
Work to manage the Ashford Green Corridor is helped enormously by the dedication of local volunteers. Today they are hard at work removing Himalayan balsam, an invasive plant species that can take over riverbanks and other places. Tell me what it is that you enjoy about volunteering.
I love being out in the countryside and doing all sorts of different jobs and helping the wildlife.
Fantastic. And are you local? Did you know about the corridor before you started volunteering?
Yes, I'm local. I live in Ashford. I live near Victoria Park. I know about the Green Corridor because I used to walk and cycle to work along the Green Corridor.
Close by one end of the Ashford Green Corridor is Gévaudan. Tell me, what's so special about this area at Gévaudan?
Well, this is an area that used to be an intensively managed arable field, and we effectively turned it into this wildflower meadow, along with putting in all sorts of other habitats. So we have ponds for amphibians and aquatic insects. We have some new trees planted alongside the river. We have newly planted hedgerows. We've got hibernaculum for reptiles. Of course, we have the river, which is a area also that's been enhanced. We've had machines in the river digging out ponds and berms to make the river more interesting for wildlife. So we've carried out a whole range of different work to make it into effectively a nature reserve.
The Great Stour Meadow area shows what can be achieved with good management and long-term planning. Well, I've had a lovely time going through the Ashford Green Corridor, but if it's to last, we need to stop and think about what the loss of species, habitats and connectivity will have on the Ashford Green Corridor. To get involved or find out more, visit the website, or better still, come along and discover it for yourself.